Alrighty, so in this lecture we're going to be talking about building a strong medical school application. And there's a lot of principles that go into this process, so we're going to split it up into several different lectures. So we're not going to cover everything in this particular lecture because I really want to hammer down the points and to make sure that it doesn't turn into a super long lecture video that you're falling asleep halfway through. So again, we've talked about the importance of good medical school statistics, and obviously a good MCAT score is one of those features. So depending on what your MCAT score is, you can kind of determine where you're going to fall in the application cycle, whether that's, I guess it can help decide for you whether or not you should apply to all MD programs or you should apply to all DO programs or a combination of the two. So as you can see here, the average MD candidate it was 511.5. It's actually 511.9 now based off of the most recent data. And then the DO scores are a little bit harder to find because they didn't have a formal way of tracking all that information. So it's approximately 504.3 for the average matriculant who gets in. I think that's also a lot higher now too, in the possible 506 range. So just some things that you should consider. So obviously having a strong MCAT score is imperative to having a very good medical school application. So, but we're starting to get into the realm where medical schools don't just want smart students, they want holistic students. And what that term means is someone who has a lot more life experience, a lot more, I guess, different features and characteristics that kind of make for a good doctor. And it doesn't just involve having, I guess like intellect and, doing very well on exams and stuff in the past. So they want a lot more from students these days, and so because of that, you have to make sure you check off all of those boxes. So some of this includes like clinical work experiences. So I've laid out some examples for you there to take a look and see, what you can utilize, and this isn't obviously all-inclusive. You can use them for different things. But, generally speaking, IPPEs and APPEs, now I know that's part of your curriculum, and generally speaking, you don't put mandatory curriculum points on your work activities or talk about them in, in regular experiences because, of course, you were required to do that. But I think for IPPEs and APPEs specifically, you can make an exception because of the uniqueness and the potential opportunities and the learned experience you get from those rotations. So I think that can be useful, and you can share some of those in your work activity section and even in your personal statement, depending on how many you've done and where you are in the application stage. A paid example could be like a pharmacy intern position at a hospital or in a community setting, and that's also a great way to kind of share, your dedication to the field, but you're also having some work experience, and being employed, I think, can also show a lot of maturity, and you know how to work well with other people. So that can be something else that I think will help you, shine out versus maybe a student who hasn't had any of those opportunities or has never had to work a job in their life. So that is that right there for clinical work experience. So next we're going to talk about clinical and experimental research. So there's a lot of information here on the text, so I don't want you to worry about it or freak out too much, because we'll kind of cover some of the main details. But of course, you want to have research experience when you're applying for medical school. Now, there's two different types of research, and that could be clinical, which is more patient-based, more looking at chart review and information that's actually stored like retroactively through like the EMR systems. Now, that is one potential option. There's other options for clinical research, but that's just one example I like to use. And then experimental research is some of the more traditional biology-based foundational chemistry research that you're doing on a bench work or working with like a PhD who has their own lab, something along those lines. So there's two different types of research, and I think having exposure in both can help you. I personally had exposure in both. I started with experimental research, doing summer research projects, and I did like a 10-week summer research experience that kind of opened up the door for a lot of possibilities with continuing research and getting publications along and things along those lines. So that's what I did to kind of start my experimental research experience during pharmacy school, and I started that super early, so like I recommended in the schedule during your P1 year, look out for those opportunities. Clinical research didn't really come to me until a lot later in my pharmacy track, and I think it's just because you need to understand a lot of the clinical questions that are being asked. And so a lot of them are correlated with medications or with, different disease states, and having that a stronger background in that particular field can help you, I guess, come up with your own research questions and clinical questions that you could help, professors or faculty explore further. So clinical exposure or clinical research opportunities usually present themselves also during APPE rotations. So that can be a good way to, if you haven't been on APPEs yet, or you're currently on APPEs, make sure you ask your preceptors for opportunities to continue with research or to get involved, because clinical research can also be turned around a lot faster. That's not always the case, but generally speaking, you can crank out a project a lot faster with a lot more work. They're probably not as fun as playing with a bunch of chemicals or working under the hood in an experimental setting, but it can be you can get to the results a lot faster usually. So with that regard, we have to cover kind of the hierarchy of how all of this fits into things and how you would even, I guess, talk about it on an application. So generally speaking, publications are the highest tier, like it's the most valuable, I guess, content that you should have as part of, I guess, being a strong applicant is having a lot of publications. Now, that's not to say that you need to have 1 million hours to get those publications, but generally speaking, it's publications, then it's abstracts and posters, and then last but not least is just quantity of hours. So when you're filling out AMCAS and you're filling out the work activity sections, generally speaking, I recommend you put in some of the research experiences that you've had. So when you do that, it'll ask you for how many hours, and it's going to ask you the kind of results that you got from that. And from an AdCom perspective, we like to see results. So I think it shows a lot more, I guess it shows a lot more, not necessarily commitment, but like you followed through with things, or like you worked on a project that actually resulted in something, so it looks better from that perspective. So if you put in 100 hours and you end up with a publication, well, that could be happenstance, or it could, mean that you worked really hard to get to that particular point in time. So versus if someone has 1,000 hours of research but they don't have anything to show for it, not even a poster or an abstract, then it kind of makes me think that maybe some of those hours are a little inflated, or they weren't really as committed to the process as they kind of pretend to be at that particular stage. That's not to say that they're not doing anything, or they're just sitting around and not working hard. I think you have to kind of gauge how an applicant responds to some of the research questions that you ask about it. So from like an AdCom perspective, anything you put on your AMCAS is free reign for us to ask about. So sometimes I'll ask a little bit more about someone's research, or can you tell me more about this particular project? This sounds really cool. What was your role in that particular project, and things along those lines. So just be prepared to share more about any kind of research that you do and submit on the application. And then finally, with the submitting this information, you can even just put in as work activities, just basically a abstract. You say, like, I presented an abstract at this conference. This is why it was important to me. It showed me, how to present. It helped me create research content and answer questions and so on, like that. So you can share multiple things in your work activities. So for me personally, I think I put 2 different research experiences. One was a publication, and the other one was that undergraduate research experience that I did that resulted in a whole bunch of like posters and abstracts and long-term professional relationships. So how you do that, I think, is having research on your application is very, very important, and can lead to furthering, I guess, making your application a lot stronger compared to someone who doesn't have research, because it just kind of rounds you out and shows that not only are you clinical, but you understand how a lot of the medical decisions are made, and that is usually through long-term research and evidence-based medicine. So I think that obviously research is important, but now you know a little bit more about why we like to have research, the differences between clinical and experimental, and so on. So that concludes this lecture right now, and then we'll continue on with other things that I think applicants should have.